All right, welcome to the following video where we're actually going to be building the robust RAG system. And if you can recall, this is how it looks like, right? This is from the previous video. Now, I'm going to do the best I can to go through this as fast as I can. However, I want to take my time as well to make sure you're getting the thought process as to why we're doing what we're doing when we're doing the build, because that's the most valuable stuff. That's what's really going to help you when you're building the automations yourself, or you're going to be doing this for other business owners, right? If you're running an AI agency as your business. Now, I will be, pausing the video here and there, so there's going to be some chops. I just want to make sure I, delete some documents, delete some data, so it's clean. So just heads up, there could be some choppiness here. But without further ado, let's get started. The first thing we want to do is the file creation path, right? So hopefully you already have your Google Drive set up. So let's continue. So the first one you're gonna pick is on changes to a specific file. So we're gonna click that, okay? And we're gonna leave it as every minute. So it triggers every minute to make sure like it sees there's no specific files that have been created, right? Let's see. So triggers on specific involving specific folder. Let me pause this so I can look through the folder path. All right, before doing that, we got to change this to changes involving a specific folder. We're going to do this. I'm going to put dummy here, dummy documents. Cool. And what do we need to watch out for, right? We need to watch out for files being created. The one that is being updated we'll do later. Now, you're going to see folder created, folder updated, watch folder updates, and all that. We're not going to deal with that for the most part. We're going to be building the RAG system that's going to be built within one folder and everything under that specific path. Now, if there's other folders created within that folder where all those files lives, it's going to create some problems. So we don't want that. We want to make sure it's just one major folder. I have mine as dummy documents. And then we're going to do two things: file created and file updated. We're doing the created first. All right. So I'm going to fetch, actually I'm not. Let's continue. All right. The next thing we need to do is actually download the test flow. That's what I want to see what's in there, right? So next thing we know is we need to download the files into the N8N environment. So we're gonna do that. We're gonna do download file, and I'm gonna shrink myself because I'm a little too big here. Okay, great. So now we need to do the let's take a look, file from ID, and we're gonna look into the ID. Where is the ID? The ID is somewhere here. I know where it is. There we go. So we're gonna look into the ID. Perfect. And we are going to run this. Perfect. So we got corporate financial planning and analysis guide. Okay. Now we know that there's two files there, but we'll reset that later. We're gonna leave it as this because gonna need one specific full files for testing purposes. Okay, so we've downloaded it. The next thing we need to do is add our Pinecone, right? So we're gonna do Pinecone, perfect, and actually before we do Pinecone, let's create the index. Okay, so hopefully you have your index, and what you need to do is create index here. So let's go ahead and create a new index. I'm gonna name this sample, and I'm gonna put 3. Okay, sample 3. Configuration, we're gonna need text embedding small. Dimensions, remember, this is very important because every embedding needs to be the same. Okay, and we're gonna leave it at 1536. If you're gonna leave it at 512, that's fine. Just make sure that you have to make the embeddings need to be 512. However, we're gonna do 1536. It is gonna be more robust than just doing 512. Okay, service list, AWS, We're going to leave this as Virginia. We're going to create the index. Okay, what that's creating, we're going to go back to N8N and we're going to go Pinecone. Perfect. And we're going to get add documents to vector store. Perfect. And then we're going to choose the sample 3. And we're going to leave the batch embedding. Actually, we're going to change it to 50. Okay, so let's see. Okay, that's great. All right, let's go back to N8N. That's that. Now, the next thing we need to do is add the embeddings and add the data loader, right? So let's go ahead and do the embeddings because that's the easier one. It's the easiest one. We're going to do embeddings OpenAI. We're going to do text small. And now we need to do dimensions here. I believe by default, it defaults to 1536. However, we want to make sure something down the line, right? Maybe on their end, something changes and it's no longer the default, and then your flow breaks. You don't want that happening. So sometimes it's best to just assign the dimensions or any other parameter, maybe not just in the embedding, but for other modules as well. Just make sure you add some other information just to make sure there's no issues down the line if for some reason on their side something breaks. Okay, so we've got the embeddings. Now we need to do the document loader. We're going to do default data loader. And again, this is a binary, so we need to change the type to binary. Load, that's fine. You don't change this, you don't change this. What you're going to do is actually add a metadata. We're going to do add property. And we're going to do the file name here, right? And the value we want from this is we got to change this to schema. And then we are going to, where is it? Come on. Sometimes just this doesn't work. It's gonna be all the way down. I just want to make sure if I can grab it somewhere here. Yeah, it's right here. I can grab this. Perfect. All right. So that's what we want the name to be, right? Make sure you add the metadata. Yes, you can create the index without the file name, but trust me, it's gonna come very, very handy down the line. And we have it as part of the file naming convention, right? So for this exercise, if you're following along, just make sure you add it. Okay, cool. Now we need to add the text splitter. We're going to do recursive. And now just quickly on this, the reason we pick recursive character text splitter is because it's a balance between character text splitter and having a semantic break. So for example, I'm just going to grab this character here, right? So if we had a break of 1, 2, 3, 4 characters, everything in the R, actually let me do Pinecone because it's probably bit. Okay, so let's say I do a 4-character split, right? P, I, and E is going to be, right, a specific vector, and then cone is going to be another vector. That's the text splitter. When you do the recursive, it actually tries to get the semantic. If you can't find the semantic, then it falls back, meaning, okay, if this is not that, then what do you want me to use? Then that's the fallback. What do you want me to use? Then you use text splitter, where it goes back to the 4-character, right? For this example, the semantic will be Pinecone. For the most part, it will grab Pinecone altogether, opposed to breaking it in the middle. So that's why we want to grab recursive. Now, the token one, it's more dynamic. We're actually letting the LLM choose on behalf of us without specific fixed parameter. We don't want that. I mean, it really varies depending on what you're tackling, right? I would highly suggest just stick to the recursive character. It's the most balanced. Now, chunk size, we already went over. We're basically saying, hey, out of when I grab the example from before, my document has 4,000 characters. I want to chunk all my 4,000 into thousands. So that's going to give us 4 vectors, right? Excuse me, not vectors. 4 text chunks, which will then go through the embeddings, and then vectors will be created from there. Okay, so we're going to do an overlap. of 200, and like I mentioned last time, the overlap is basically grabbing the last 200 characters from the from the chunk um, from the chunk 1 and carrying it over from to chunk 2, and then the last 200 characters from chunk 2 to chunk 3 and so forth. So there's some waterfall effect per se, right? So leave that as 200. Perfect. Okay, so we created our, I believe I picked sample 3, right? Okay, now we need to test this, right? Let's just go ahead and give it a test, just to make sure that the information is actually flowing too. So we're gonna hit test flow. It should do that. Okay, everything is working perfectly fine. Great. Let's check our vectors here. Did they get created? One more time. It did not. What is going on? So let's go back here. It has 20. Oh, there. Hold on. It's probably some timing issues here. Yeah, some timing issues. There you go. So 20 records. Okay, great. So it's working. Beautiful. All right. The next thing we need to do is add the code structure, right? So I'm actually going to cheat. Okay. You should actually get the template, get the code that I'm going to put here. So basically, what this code does, you're going to see right now, it's going to give us the file name along with how many vectors that's been done, right? How many vectors have been created based on this run. Now, one thing, I'm not going to be renaming all of these, okay? You can definitely do so if you like, but I'm trying to just move things along as fast as possible because I know time is money and your time is valuable. So I want to make sure that I run through this, give you some thought process along the way, and yeah. Now, the reason we want to add this to either a database, which I'm actually probably going to do a later video with Supabase on how to do this same type of RAG system, but instead of Google Sheet, doing Supabase. But the reason for that, I believe I mentioned this before, is most of you have already Google Sheets, right? So it's going to be easier for you to interact. It's one less account that you guys need to do. You guys need to get exposure first, understanding before grabbing all these accounts, because you're gonna get overwhelmed. It's like, oh man, I gotta get this one, I gotta get that one. No, for the most part, 99% of you probably already have a Gmail account. You're gonna have a Google Sheet account. It's gonna be easier for you. Okay, so we're going to be creating a Google Sheet here, where we're actually going to be updating our, we're gonna be appending we're going to be appending I'm going to stop this because I want to make sure I get that right. The Pinecone Master ID Tracker, right? That's the name of the Google Sheet. Okay. Now, the sheet I want to update, right, is the vectors created. So I'm actually going to remove these, right? Delete those. And now I am going to go to vectors created. We're actually going to map this manually, okay? Because there's just that little field. There's not that many fields, and for this type of setup, I like to have more control than just the automatic one. Let's see. Embedded. Let me just check, make sure the other one has the same thing. Yeah, I thought so. Okay, yeah. So now we're gonna run this, and we're gonna see that this gets populated. It should only be one record, perfect, because we only ran one, right? Okay, great. All right, so now, now what we need to do is build the loop, right? And the first thing we want to add, and this is something I want to keep you guys kind of keep in mind, okay? When you're making a request or you're hitting another platform, the best practice is to add some type of wait module, okay? Because you're dealing with third parties, external sources. You just don't know how long their platform is going to take. How much wait, you really have to test that out because different platforms vary, right? but you always want to have some level of weight into the flow when you're making some level of request, whether that's HTTP or when you're doing something like this, because you just don't know how long it's going to take. So, because remember, I said that we cannot get the ID from Pinecone nor Supabase, at least as of right now, as of this video for N8N, we have to do an HTTP request to Pinecone, right? And the way we do that, you should have this. However, there's other things we need to add after that, where our handy dandy Claude was able to assist, and it worked. Okay, so we're gonna apply those things. Now, again, we're gonna do the wait. So we're gonna do the wait. Perfect. We're gonna do 20 seconds. Actually, I think I put 25. I'm gonna check on the other module. I did put 25, so we're gonna stick with that, right? We're gonna do 25 seconds. I actually think 20 seconds is sufficient, but because the other module has 25, we're gonna make sure it's apples to apples. We're going to do that. Now, once it's done with the wait, we want it to loop, and we want to do one by one. Okay, we're gonna do batch one. We're going to replace this with the code, another code, right? Now, again, all these codes you're going to be able to get through the community, right? If it's not already part of this specific course, and by course I mean I'm talking about just this specific like video, not the course in general. But you should have this. Okay, you're gonna get this. We got the code there. Okay, now let's run it, right? Let's just run it. It's gonna wait. So I'm gonna pause this because I don't want you guys waiting for 25 seconds. All right, perfect. All right, so let's look at the output here. Okay, so the way we need to actually get the request, we need to create that dimensions that we have in our embedding. So if for some reason you're picking a different dimension, you're gonna have to go into this code and change the dimensions to whatever you have. So hopefully you didn't pick 512, because then you're gonna have to change 512 here, 1536 to 512. Okay, and I haven't tested 512, so I don't know if something's gonna break down the line. So if you need to go back and recreate the index, go ahead and do that. Okay, but for the most part, I believe you just need to change this to 512 or any other dimensions you're creating. The purpose of this is because that's how the HTTP request requires it. Okay, and these are all the things that we need. So we have the code, beautiful. Now we need to add the HTTP request. So we're going to do the HTTP request. Perfect. And then what you need to do is do a post here. And then your URL, right, which is actually this one, right? Post URL. And we need to do query here. Okay, no authentication. We do need to pass on headers, and this is where your IP address needs to go. Now, I'm not gonna put it here. I'm gonna pause, run it, and then show you guys the output, but I can't show you guys my IP address, right? So I'm gonna skip that, and then the next thing you need to do is go to send body. And this is where you need to do one by one. Okay, you're not going to do a JSON format like this. We're actually going to go one by one. We're going to go vector. Oh, excuse me. Vector. Perfect. And then we're going to drag vector here. Okay. Then the next thing we need to add is top K. So basically everything at the bottom. Not everything there. We need to go to the vectors, vector. Here we go. So everything here, top K, include edit, needs to be added. And exactly how it's in the code, top K, that's how you need to type in the name, okay? So that's that. We need to do another one that include metadata. Then we drag this here. Perfect. And then we do include values. Perfect. And then we need to do filter. Okay. Filter. And then we drag the filter here. So let me check. Yeah, perfect. Okay. I'm going to put my information and then I'll be back. Okay, perfect. So we got information, right? We got what we needed. This is us getting the information and the associated IDs we need so we can add to our sheet. So now that we have that, we need to add another Google Sheet, and this is to add our vectors, right? Google Sheet. And we are going to be a row. And this is a dummy. Why? One sec. Oh, I was actually looking for the folder. It's supposed to be the actual Google Sheet. Okay, so that's that. The next thing we need to do is vector ID, right? We need to do the vector ID. We are gonna map these manually as well. Now, we're going to delete it because this one only cares for updating file name and the vector ID. Okay, so let's go here and HTTP request. Okay, this is the file name. 1 second. File name. That's not right. Let's see. I'm missing something here. That's giving me 1 sec. Okay, so actually, I'm not supposed to do a Google Sheet there. I was like, why is it that's not working? We need to structure it again. So there's another code we need to do. We're gonna paste this, and this is gonna give us a structure we actually need. Perfect. This is the list we need. I was like, this doesn't look right. This is why I have cheat sheet. I have to look at mother. Okay, now we need to add the Google Sheet. Now let me explain to you why we have this code. The other way, it's going to give you an item, a bracket and zeros. Okay, I don't know if you guys noticed that on the previous. Go ahead and see, like every time I drag it, you can see like a bracket and zero. And the reason for that is because it's not in the structure we need it, where you can just reference the specific ID or file name, and it knows to capture everything. Okay, so if you see that is brackets and zeros like this, you're gonna immediately be like, hey, do I really want just one item or do I need everything? If the answer is everything, then you might need to do a code module like I'm doing here in order to structure the data to where you want it to be, so you can add it to Google Sheet or whatever the platform you're using. Okay, so we've done the code, it's structured properly, and now we need to do the Google Sheet. And this one we're going to be appending the row. We're going to be looking for Pinecone. Perfect. And then we're going to be doing the vector ID. Yes, we're doing it manually. We're going to delete it. Then we're going to do, guess what? Now we only have one. But look, if I go into JSON, you're going to see all of them, right? But when I go to schema, it's only going to give you one. It's going to be the first one. Okay, but it knows like, oh, there's multiple in there, so it's gonna capture all of them. You're gonna see, right, that it doesn't give me a 1. If I were to have grabbed this one, for example, just so you guys can see, it's going to give me a bracket 0. That is not what we want. We want all of them. Okay, hence why we need to structure our document properly so we can capture everything. So now we press this and we should be seeing our vectors ID being added. Oh, I should have deleted all of these. Okay, let's do this again. Let's test this out, and we should see our IDs being added here. Now, a good thing to add here, now that I just thought about it, we should actually have a date as to when these were added, because the longer the date, the data could be stale, right? So we would need to update it in order to keep things fresh, get our AI agent very knowledgeable with the most updated things. So another thing we can probably add is another schedule trigger to pull the information, look at the latest, the earliest file that's there, see, hey, it's been 3 months. Is there any information? Sometimes we just forget, we get cut off, and then for us to be able to update the file. Okay, so that's another thing that we can add here. Okay, so now that we've done that, okay, we have finished the top portion of it, the file creation, right? So if we bring this back here, this is our file, right? The last thing was the Google Sheets. Perfect. And that, the Google Sheets. Let me stop this for a second before we continue on the next one. All right, so now we need to add the once someone updates a file, right, in the folder for it to trigger. It's like, okay, well, someone updates the file, what's going to happen to our embeddings, right, our vector files? Well, we have two options. It's like, hey, you can update the current embeddings, which we already went over, and not the most practical approach, or delete the current embeddings, the vectors, and then recreate it with the new updated information from that current file, right? So that's what we need to do. We need to say, hey, someone updates it, cool. We need to go into Pinecone, delete the information, and then we need to rerun Pinecone to create the embeddings, push the vectors to Pinecone one more time, right? And then as well update our information in Google Sheet. So let's do that. We're gonna create another trigger, right? We're gonna do Google Drive. Perfect. Scroll down. Triggers. Specific file. Yes, that's right. Involving specific folder. We are in the dummy folder. Perfect. And then we need to watch for our file update, right? Perfect. Okay, so that's done. So we're going to move this here. And upon, let's just test this real quick. This should give me one record, and it's the current file, which is the, should be only the corporate finance, yeah, corporate financial planning. We're going to be doing the same type of document that we did here. Okay, so the next thing we need to do is like, okay, great, that's great and all. This file got updated. Well, how do we get the embeddings? Well, we know that the vector IDs, the embeddings, right, are in our Google Sheet, right, which are these. We need to retrieve these IDs because we need to delete all of them. So we need to do, hey, we need to fetch information from Google Sheets, right? And the way we do that is through the file name. And that's the reason why I say, hey, you need the metadata. It's going to become crucial. So we're going to do Google Sheets. We're going to do get rows. Okay, get rows. And we're going to do, I believe we can get the ID here. Boom, boom, boom. Let's go down. I believe the ID is here, yeah. So we're going to change document. We're going to go from by ID. We're going to go here. And then we're going to, there's nothing there. One. Where did it go wrong? Mm-hmm. Oh, this is not a document. if you're getting. This is actually the Google Sheet. The same thing. Second time I do this, that on this. Hold on one second. We're getting information from our Pinecone sheet, right? For some reason, I thought we need to go into the folder again. No, this is different. So we're gonna get from Pinecone. We're gonna go into vectors IDs, and then we are gonna filter the column for the file name. Okay, and then we are going to grab the name, which should be at the bottom. Name. Where are you? Name. There we go. Name. Okay. Perfect. That's it. We're going to test it. See what we get. We should be getting the IDs. Perfect. Great. Great. All right. Now we need to only get the vector ID. You can see that we get all this other stuff that we don't care about, right? So we just need to get the vector ID. Now, the way we do this is we need to aggregate everything into one specific array, and then we need to reconvert it to a string because that's the way the HTTP requests it, right? Now, before you, as you progress and you do your own flows, you're gonna have to kind of map this process flow out through Miro or a PowerPoint or Excel, whatever you're using. And if an HTTP request comes about, you most likely your previous modules are probably going to depend on your HTTP, right? So, and by depend, I mean you first need to know how the HTTP request intakes information, and then your previous modules are going to have to adjust to that. Now, let's do that here. So we know that we need to get it into a list format, but the first thing we need to do is aggregate the information into one specific array. So we know that it's the vector ID, right? So let's go back to schema. We're going to go to vector ID. Let's run that. And we should get an array into now all of these values within the array. Remember, everything in brackets, it's an array. Okay? Perfect. That's all great and dandy. Now we need to convert it into a string. That array needs to be converted to a string. So the way we do that is we need to grab the vector ID and we need to convert this to a string. That's all we need to do. And now you can see that it's still an array, but it's actually a string because you can see the quotes here, right? It's being wrapped around quotes. Versus the previous one, you can see, let me move this out of the way, you can see that it was not, right? There's no quotes around the bracket. So I'm going to move this over here. Perfect. All right, so we got that. Now the next thing we need to do is add the HTTP request. So we're going to go ahead and HTTP request. And this one's going to get a post. And the same thing, we're going to go back into our Pinecone, copy this, put it there. And this one actually requires some other stuff, which is this. Okay. You need to dig into the API documentation. If you can't figure out which, it's going to be like a hit and miss, 50-50, then get AI involved. Or if you just don't want to deal with it, just get AI involved immediately. ChatGPT, Claude. You do not want to waste time trying to deal with the API documentation if you don't have to. Okay. There will be times that you need to. There's going to be those scenarios. But if you can conceptualize what the HTTP request is, what it requires, and understand the high level, then it's okay. Like you can move forward. All right. But it is important to understand how the HTTP request works. So we're going to do the URL. We're going to send headers. Again, I need to put my credentials. I'm not going to do this here. I'm going to run it and then I'm going to show. Now, before you do that, you need to change this to using JSON. Okay. Perfect. And then the next thing we want to do is send a body. And this one we're going to do using JSON as well. And then this one, we're just gonna change the expression and we're gonna put that, which is just the vector ID, all this, okay? So I'm gonna pause it, put my info so we can see the output here. Now quickly, this is what goes in the JSON. I actually forgot to show this part on the other HTTP request, the very first one, okay? This is the very same thing that you're gonna put over there. API, like exactly like these, capital A, PI, dash, capital K, EY, okay? Everything exactly like this. And then you are gonna put your API key in quotations. Everything, your API key goes in here, okay? Do not delete the quotes. All right, let me stop and let me run this. All right, so I ran it and you can see that the output is blank. Now, you're gonna have to go in Pinecone and see if it actually got deleted, okay? And there's no records here now, right? So yes, it got deleted, but we don't want to check every single time. So this is why we automate the thing, right? So we're gonna get out of here. I'm gonna put my API key again. So I'm gonna stop this. Perfect. And now you have two options. You do not have to add the additional HTTP request. This is more of a safeguard. And I would say it's best practice just to call and check before proceeding through the flow. Okay, that's my recommendation, just from building systems throughout my entire career. Again, you do not need this check though. You can just continue through the other parts of the flow. Now, since we're going to be doing this step by step, I will be adding the HTTP request. And this one, it's going to be similar. We're actually going to be fetching the information. So we're going to do post. We're going to go back here to your Pinecone platform. Again, copy this, paste it in there. And now we're going to be fetching information. So there will be some other stuff that you add to the URL. Okay. No authentication. We do need to send headers. And this is, again, where you're going to enter the same information that we did in the previous two HTTP requests, your API key and your content type. So I'll add that after. You do need to send body, and you're going to be using it as JSON, and you're going to be adding this. Now, I'm getting there because I don't have the actual naming convention as that. I have it as edit fields. So I'm going to change this to edit field. Is it edit field? Edit fields. Let's go back here. Edit. There you go. Edit fields. Perfect. Okay, now it's green. You can see that the information populates, right? All right, I'm going to go ahead and put my information. Same thing like last time, okay? Okay, well, I ran it and the output was no information. So that's good. That's what we want. We want to make sure that the vector IDs for that file that got updated gets deleted, right? So the next thing we need to do is I'm gonna stop and put my API keys and we'll continue. Okay, the next thing we need to do is add the if, right? So we're gonna say, hey, if it actually got deleted, which is great, that's what we want, we're gonna have a fork. We're gonna say, hey, update our documents, which is our Google Sheets, and at the same time, proceed with adding the embeddings, right? Creating the new embeddings for this specific document. So we're gonna go ahead and put here an if, okay, string here. So this is a string. And we're gonna say, hey, if it's empty, okay? And the answer should be, yes, it's true, because there's no data, it's empty, okay? Now, I've tested out if this works or not. I've added information, it goes to false. When I delete and this actually truly blank, it's gonna go to the true branch, all right? So now that we've got a in a true path, right? Now we need to add a set module. And we need to pick the information from the aggregate. Okay, we need to bring this back in. So we're going to grab this here, we're going to run it, and then we're actually going to convert this to, we're going to split this out because we want it into a proper structure where it's just an item, right? We need one item at a time in order for Google Sheets to update the Google Sheet properly. For the Google Sheets to update properly. So we're going to split out. Every time it's an array like this, you can do the split out to get these to just one item. So we're actually going to put this and type in vector ID and other fields. We're going to run this, and we should now get one specific item, right? Comma, item, comma, item, comma, item. All right, and now Google Sheets actually knows, oh, okay, these are individual. It interprets it, oh, one row, right, per one. Let's go update the Google Sheet. Okay, great. We have the information. Now let's go ahead and update our Google Sheet. We need to update row in sheet. And we need to do Pinecone here. Pinecone. We need to add the vector IDs. Perfect. We're going to map each, yes. Column to match against, it's going to be the vector ID. Okay. These are the ones that got deleted, right? So we need to make sure that it's, and this is the reason why we don't delete the information here, because if not, things don't work. We don't want this values to update. Oh, we don't want file name. We only want deleted, and we're going to put a 1 here. And we're going to be using the vector ID. Go to schemas, go over here. And actually, now that I recall, you don't have to go to schemas because everything is the same, right? It's going to give me the same thing. Perfect. Okay, that should be it. We should be now, these should give you a 1. Perfect. And these are all deleted now, okay? In theory, they're all deleted. Well, actually, in reality, they are deleted from the Pinecone, but you don't delete it from your logs. Okay, that's it. That's the end of this flow. You update it, perfect. Now, the rest of the thing is to actually do this part. We're going to basically copy all this. Actually, I'm not going to copy all this. We're going to do this one by one because we need to, I want you guys to, actually, you know what? You guys are not going to build this one by one. In reality, you will be copying this and then just changing the necessary things. So we're going to do that. We're going to copy this and we're just going to be changing the necessary things. So we're going to do to true, okay? This is a little bit lower than what I have here on the flow. So we're going to grab all this and we're going to go up. Perfect. Okay, so now, well, it's not the previous information. We actually need the information from the previous Google Drive, right? Which is this. So we're actually going to grab all this, going to go in here, and we are going to, actually it's a little bit different. I'm going to cheat, and I'm going to grab, let's go to just the Google Drive. This is what you're going to deal with. So I'm gonna do it how it's supposed to be done. All right, we're gonna find the ID. It should be somewhere here. Let's just find it together. ID. Okay, so we need the ID. All right, so we're going to remove this. We're going to add the ID, Google Drive trigger, right? Perfect. Okay, so that's going to download the data, right? The next thing we need to do is Pinecone. There shouldn't be anything we need to do in Pinecone. We need to do the default data loader. And I don't think it's going to be named. Let me check. No, it's not going to be name. It's actually going to be Google Drive as well. So I'm going to actually trigger the previous nodes. Perfect. Google Drive. We need schema. Google Drive. We need to go to Google Drive. And we need to do the name. Perfect. The name's right there. So we're going to get rid of this, and we're going to go back to the name. It says green. Beautiful. Right? Why the name? Because remember, I'm going to stop this. I'm not sure why this going. Okay, so because it's grabbing it from the actual files that's being triggered, right? We need that name in order to run this. Everything else should work. But if it doesn't, we're going to debug here. So we're going to run this. And let's see where things go wrong. Okay. There shouldn't be any records here. 40. Still going. Great. Adding it to our vector. Okay, so everything worked, but this is not right. We actually need to change this to an update because we don't want to append. We need to actually update the information. And I believe the only thing we need to do is literally just change that to update row and then just leave it as is. Perfect. Yeah, that's it. There's nothing else to do. So now what we need to do is we're going to actually test this out. So we're going to go here. We're going to delete this. Okay. We're going to go to dummies. We're going to delete all of this. Go to trash. Go to trash. Delete this. And then we'll pause this. All right. There's no files here. Beautiful. So I want to make sure that this one's open. Okay. So now what we need to do is activate this flow. Yes. Perfect. And we're going to test this. We're going to see if what we built actually works, right? So we're going to drag the documents. First, actually, let me say, there's nothing here. Perfect. All right. So we're going to drag the documents. Perfect. And now we're going to go to execution. And there should be same thing like we did the previous one, right? There should be another one loading in the next 30 seconds to a minute, and the first one should trigger, and we should be able to see the first two documents information here, the vectors being created, and then what we're going to do is update the information and see the vectors being updated and deleted as well. Okay, so we're in a couple of seconds here. And there it is. Perfect. It's running. And this is going to take a minute, right? We've seen the other one work. Okay, so let's see. Okay, this is added, but the vectors did not get added. So let's see what happened. Something did not work. Let's go back to editor. Let's go back to executions. Let's take a look. So the way you debug, so in the execution, you can see what happened. So there's no output. I can't go in here because it's gonna show my IP address. So this one worked. Okay, I'm gonna go in there and see what happened once. Okay, so nothing got returned, and I feel this is due to the weight. It probably did not. There's 62 records there, right? So we know that. So we're gonna test this again. So I'm gonna go back. We're gonna go to editor, and there's 25 seconds there. That should be sufficient. I'm gonna check my API keys here. This is a little bit interesting. So we're gonna try this again. I'm gonna move to trash and delete this. The reason we remove it from trash because it's like a 50-50 chance that sometimes it shows up on 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 Google as well, like when through N8N. All right, all right. We can see that there's no data, right? So we're gonna actually delete the entire embeddings here. So the way you do this is you go to list, limit of 100. You're going to list this, scroll all the way down. The max you can do is 50 at a time. So we're gonna do this. Go here, delete this. We don't want any of this. We're gonna start from scratch. Perfect. All right. So it's active. Great. I I'm gonna increase this to 40 seconds just to be safe. Like at this point, if 40 seconds fail, then something else is happening and we need to debug. Okay, we might. I originally had to wait here, but this should be sufficient because we're updating everything here, and this should have enough time to update the information. So 40 seconds should be sufficient. So perfect. We're gonna save. There's nothing else to do. The next thing we need to do is this is active, right? Yep. All right. So now we need to we need to add the information. Okay, it's added. And again, we're gonna go back to executions and we're gonna see this work. Um, and the reason I'm not pausing through this is because I want you guys to see how it actually functions. And if it's not functioning, well, we need to see what's going on. We need to do some debugging, right? Now we've set everything up exactly how the original file is. So maybe I fat finger something, or maybe the weight was not aggressive enough in terms of we need to add more to it, right? So, okay, it's doing its thing. It's creating, perfect, great. And the idea is that this should have sufficient enough time now in order for Pinecone to have the records, as you see there, 22 records. Perfect. And it should be sufficient in time to update our flow. Succeeded, but still no vector IDs. Okay, so let's take a look at what is going on. Let's go to the editor. Pinecone, file name, vector ID, great. Okay, let me look into here as to map. Is there anything else that needs to be? Everything looks fine. One sec. Check again the executions. I'm gonna check the. As you can see that it stops even before going and updating the information, right? So something is happening on like here because there's no info. So if there's no info, either something is wrong here or something is wrong here. So let's see. I'm gonna go into the weight. Perfect, that's great. Okay. Okay. Awesome. So the HTTP is having something funky. So I'm gonna do it by itself. And this is what you will be able to do as well. Just want to make sure. Let's test this out. Something's wrong. So I'm gonna stop because my credentials are there. Okay, so it was telling me it was wrong because I don't have, we added variables here, right? So we're actually gonna go back to the execution. We're going to be grabbing the information, the output here, copying this, editor, and we're gonna mock this up. This is where you are going to get a ton of value mocking the information up. Okay, like this. You see how it's pinned? Every time you pin something, and the reason you want to do this is you don't want to hit the HTTP request multiple times, right? Or the API, whatever you're using. So when you have a sufficient amount of data, you want to just mock it. You want to just grab that copy, pin it, and then test it out. So 1 second. Now you can see like, oh, these are not red, and it was red before me doing this. But let's test it. What's happening? So the information is there. Like nothing is wrong with this. Now I am a little bit curious as to why it's not working in here. We can tell that it's working. So something is happening here. So what I want to do now is actually change the weight and put it inside because that's how I originally had it. We're gonna delete this and we're actually going to do a weight here. And we're gonna do the same number of weight. We're actually gonna do 25 because I think that is sufficient. Okay. We're gonna move all this. Weight. And I'm kind of glad that we're going through this the debugging process so you can see what it takes. Okay, we're gonna try this. Okay, now every document is gonna have going through this weight scenario as well. So let's go ahead and delete again because this is what we need to do. This is when you need to debug you need to do this. Sec. We can see that there's nothing there. We're gonna save this. Okay. And we are going to drag our documents one more time here. That's going to fire up the workflow. Okay, and I'm actually going to delete everything here because we don't need this. Perfect. And then we're going to go to executions and we're going to see another one spinning like we've seen several times now, right? We're going to have it spin. And you know what? This time I'm going to stop it because we've gone through so several already that you have some notion as to, okay, what to expect. I'm going to wait until this succeeds so we can look at it together. Okay, there you go. It's running, right? So I'm going to stop it until it's actually, let's see. So information is added, and now hopefully the vector IDs get added, right? So it's going. Let's see. I should have actually deleted the information in the vector store, but a little bit too late at this point. There we go, guys. There we go. Okay, nothing wrong with the flow. It's just what I mentioned earlier in the beginning of this video. When you do HTTP requests, you just don't know how long their platform is going to take, right? Actually, just out of being conservative, I might change that 25 seconds and put 60 seconds, right? Because I just don't know how long it's going to take. But we can see that it's working perfectly. It added both of them, right? This one, there's nothing wrong with this flow. Now we just gotta wait for a second. Perfect. Okay, now let's go back here and we're gonna run this part, right? But the same thing we're gonna do here is remove the weight and we're gonna add it. Let me just move this a little bit. I'm gonna add the weight here and I put 25 seconds. We're gonna stick with 25 seconds. Okay, perfect. All right, so now what we need to do is go into the document, right? And what I'm gonna do, I'm just gonna cheat. I am going to control, like I am going to copy all of this and I'm gonna paste it all the way at the bottom. Okay, perfect. That's it. And I'm done. I'm getting out. And we should now go to executions. This is active. Right? Oh, I need to save it. I didn't save it. Hopefully it doesn't trigger. I think I messed up. Oh, there it is. Okay. It might not run. Yeah, it got errored out. Okay, that's fine. That's fine. So we're gonna cheat again. We're gonna copy all of this and we're gonna put it at. We're gonna put it at the bottom. Whatever. We're gonna have a ton of data at this point. All right, so that's done. Great. We're getting out of it. It's saved. Perfect. So now we need to, and it's going to start again, right? We're going to give it a couple of seconds here so we can see how it's going. There's actually an error with the Google Sheets. Interesting. So we might need to look at that. There might be this might error out as well because there was an error with the Google Sheets. Yeah, so let's look at what's going on. So this one had a column match parameter require. Okay, so let's go back into the vector. Let's not activate this. Let's actually go back. I just want to clean this up because I've done so many copy and paste that there's just going to be too much data. So I'm going to copy this, move this. Okay, perfect. Let me get off this. Let me go back here and see why it was not row number. Oh, this is supposed to be vector ID, not vector created. So this does not exist, right? We need to do vector ID, not vector created. So we're going to remove, and actually it's not going to work now because these are going to be different embeddings, but we're going to see the process still work. Okay, so these are going to be okay now. Update file name. We don't want this. We want this. Wait, this is not. This is some. Oh, I've heard. This is the update. This is something different. This is Pinecone master vectors created. This is vectors created. Sorry, I thought it was the other one. Match column on file name. And we're actually going to do number of go manually fetching columns, number of vectors, and then we're going to do number of vectors. I mean, that should have worked originally, so I'm not sure why that didn't work. We were... Okay, so we're gonna test tries again. I'm gonna save it. Perfect, yes. We're gonna do that. We're gonna go back here and we're gonna cheat again. Actually, you know what? I'm just gonna copy just this part, key performance, just so I know. Okay, perfect, that's done. Okay, let's go into the triggers. I don't know if that's the correct one running. It was already 30 something seconds, but okay. Okay, that's the one. I'm not sure what this is about. And we're gonna see if it errors out again. Okay, so it's not erroring now. It's past the 11th, see 10, 11th, so it's past that. So things should be working. There's 12 now opposed to 9. Some got deleted, right? And then we should be seeing new vectors being created. There you go. Still running, but there's nothing really much to do, right? That's it. So we can see we can see it in work. It succeeded. There, like I mentioned before, dates would be lovely here. That's actually something else we should be added. Hey, when you got the initial added, and then there should probably be another updated column here when it was the last time it was modified or updated, right? All right, guys. Hopefully you understood you liked this debugging process. You know, because you're gonna have to deal with it, right? So I'm kind of glad I kind of got a hiccup here, even though this was actually fine. It was just a wait situation. This was bugging out for some unknown reason. It looked fine, but we made some adjustments, refreshed the columns, everything's working as intended. Any questions? Leave them in the community or feel free to send me a message. I'm here to assist. All right, guys, see you in this video, next video.